Hey guys, it's Lohpally here with another video, and today we're going to be going over my tier list for support solo queue in patch 12.12. So without further ado, we're going to just jump right into it. So first off, as you can kind of see on the S+, this will be pretty much the premium characters that I think are really elite in the next patch moving forward. These characters don't really need any conditions met with them, so I just think they're generically really strong picks that you can always play, and they'll always produce pretty dang good results. So obviously, Lulu, Janna, and Senna are going to be the ones. Now, Senna is really great because you can kind of play her in a lot of different styles, and what makes her really great is that she has insanely good matchups nowadays because most people aren't playing characters like Nautilus and Leona since they don't have the damage to kill you. This character scales into late game super well, and well, you can also just carry really hard on her if you're positioning well and doing tons of damage. And, you know, a lot of supports always ask me, hey, how do I carry games? Well, doing tons of damage is a great way to do that. Plus, I like the fact that she has really versatile builds. You can go a lot of different runes depending on whatever you want. Kraken Slayer, Umbral, maybe even a Divine Sunder or a Moonstone every once in a while too. So I love her. She's really great in pretty much all the lane matchups nowadays, and she is a premium character that allows you to change your draft a lot too. You don't even have to play an AD carry bottom lane if you want to. You can play things like that Tahm Kench, Sion, Maokai, etc. too. So, moving over to it next is going to be Janna, and a lot of people always ask me, like, wow, you know, what are your thoughts on Janna? I think this character is just really strong. I call this meta kind of the meta of stat checking, which is basically, you know, if you have lots of shields, lots of heals, or great amounts of damage, you're going to be a really powerful and potent character. I think Janna really fits this role a lot nowadays. Even though Moonstone's been nerfed and her shield's getting a little bit of a nerf and a W, she's one of the only enchanters that's really great at moving around the map. She is actually a character that can roam really well and isn't super dependent on her ultimate. So she's a great team fighter when you move into that, and she spikes really hard at that Moonstone, but still does well with all the extra items that she can get. On top of this, she pairs really well with all the AD carries since she peels super well, and bonus AD, it's never bad. After that, it's going to be Lulu. Lulu is one of my premiums just because her peeling is unmatched, and she's just so dang easy to play. Her Lulu ult is really great for both engages and disengaging fights, has tons of extra CC, and Polymorph is pretty much the best crowd control in the game, and it's point and click. On top of that, Lulu has really good lane matchups into most characters that don't poke her, and she scales infinitely into the game because of the fact that her help picks, her passive, when she puts her E on people, will give them bonus damage, which is something that makes all of the characters really strong, especially characters like Zeri, who are some of the strongest and sometimes permaban AD carries in a lot of your solo queue games. So after that, we're moving to S, the normal S. These are characters that are still really elite, but, you know, maybe they need a couple conditions, you need to play them a little bit better, or maybe they just don't quite make it into that S+. So first off is going to be Sona. Your fights are always really important, so she does really well with the Moonstone build too. She no longer needs that level 11 thanks to her passive changes, and honestly I think she just has good matchups into other enchanters. The main reason why she doesn't fall into the S+, I guess I would say, is that she lacks a little bit of agency in the early stages. You're kind of just chilling in lane and vibing, you know, back by your tier, etc. But really once she hits that Moonstone spike, this character takes off and makes team fighting a breeze. Also because of the fact that she has super huge ultimate potential, she can carry fights really well. And she's relatively easy to pick up since 3 of your 4 skills aren't a skill shot. And it's kind of hard to die on her nowadays. After that has actually been the character that I've been playing the most of all the characters, which is Soraka. I love Soraka, but the reason why she's not S+ is because she's actually really hard to carry if you're positioning really well and, you know, jumping in and out of healing. Plus, I'm sure all of you guys have had those scenarios where you're trying to heal someone and they're running straight away from you. So, because of that, and the fact that her ulti will no longer remove grievous wounds, although they're giving him some compensatory buffs, I think that she's relatively neutral in power between the changes to her ultimate on this patch, but I still think she's really great because she's universal. You can play her with most AD carries no matter what. Doesn't matter what your pairing is. She does pretty well into most matchups, and at worst case scenario, she can play off her solo lanes by using her ultimate for globals, so that means that even though you're stuck in lane, unlike a champion like Sona, you can actually still have pretty good impact. But I think she has some of the highest skill curve in terms of using your silence for snaring people and, blocking paths. Plus, everyone just wants to kill that dang Soraka, right? So kiting and making sure that you stay alive is why she still stays in the S, but not the S plus tier. After that is Renata. This character is just really great if you have anyone that goes in, resets, etc. Plus, her ultimate is great for team fighting. It just weaponizes all the really strong characters who are auto-attacking into their own worst enemy. She lanes pretty well against most of the enchanters since they don't outrange her, and she has some kill threat if you're consistently hitting the Qs. So I'm a big fan of this character. Pairs really well with Callista, by the way, but she's good at pairing with a lot of other characters too. So one that a lot of people always ask me about is going to be Ashe. So Ashe is up here because of the fact that the game's just kind of changed. She's one of the most outlier characters that's kind of come into fruition, which is just that people don't play Nautilus, people don't play Pyke, people don't play Leona nearly as much. There's a lot less kill threat. This is why Senna is such a premium character. So a lot of people ask me, like, what makes Ashe good? Well, she just crushes lanes. Volley is a really long-range ability that just does tons of damage, especially when augmented with Scorch and the Comet build. And because of that, she just does a lot of damage in lane. And also, she gives you literal map hack. Being able to hawkshot the map, especially in the early stages, lets you track the jungler. And if you can see the jungler more frequently, it allows you to play more aggressively and allows your teammates to know where the jungler is. Now, I'm not saying this will protect your top laner that you just hawkshotted to go in top lane all the time, but the information is always really, really valuable. So because she's a really great lane and does well into all of these matchups kind of that we've already listed, she is just a premium pick. Also, on top of that, most people are building Mandate. I'm a big fan of Axiom Arc next if you don't need the Chempunk healing debuff spell item. So outside of that, what really makes this character come together is just her ultimate cooldown is so dang short. So you're going to take Domination Secondary and run that Ultimate Hunter, and you're going to build CDR on everything. Ability Haste, get that Lucidity Boots, get that Mandate, take the Talent, take Transcendence, the Ability Haste from Ultimates, Axiom Arc, or, Chempunk. All of these things are going to be stacking so much ability haste, usually at one item. We're looking at a 40 or 50 second cooldown, and I've seen it as low as 30 or 28 seconds sometimes, depending on your itemization. So this Ashe arrow is really potent because it's non-committal, right? If you shoot it, you miss it, no one's diving in. It's not like a Leona trying to Zenith Blade in or, walk up as Nautilus and look for hook. So you can make tons of picks and playmaking with it, but also you can usually chain it together. Like a lot of times if you have a longer winded fight, which is kind of more common in these stages of the game, you can potentially have two ultis in fights. One that starts and then one maybe when you're chasing. Now combine this with the fact that you have Hawkshot, it means that you can kind of choose your fights really, really well. So you've got a character that's really great in lane, and now you have a long range engage. So make sure that when you play this character though, it's okay to miss arrows. Be liberal. Be firing those arrows, moving around the map, and playing around that cooldown. So next is going to be Yumi. Yumi, even though she's getting a little bit of adjustments, I think she's still going to be really powerful just because of the fact that she's a healing shielding champion. And we love healing and shielding champions in the durability patch. She has great laning phases. You can just start E and just stonewall any bad matchup, especially characters like Ezreal Karma you kind of do really, really well into. I like picking Yumi if the enemy team picks a lot of poke. Ezreal Karma is kind of the premium one for poking lanes, but if they're playing other things like Vel'Koz, Brand, etc., and you're like, no, I don't want to get owned in lane, Yumi is a great stonewall for that. Plus, obviously, she can jump into anyone who's super strong in the late game and really augment them super well. So next is Seraphine. Seraphine is actually receiving one of the biggest buffs I've ever seen to a character, which is going to make her snare slash stun from 1 second to 1.5 seconds, plus some adjustments to the W. This means that she is a CC machine. She will be so powerful. I still think she's a better AD carry and mid laner when you put farm on her, but she is still going to be a good support. Because of this. There's once again, you don't have like too tough of matchups, and the shielding and healing really as the game goes on is super potent because it it scales off of levels and off of your missing HP. Plus, Seraphine has so much CC. If there's any melee characters on the enemy team that are trying to dive in, or you have characters on your team diving in, you can ulti off of them, make huge playmaking, and now your CC for your snares and your roots and your stuns are going to last 1.5 seconds, which is just incredibly OP. So you're going to have tons of lockdown and a lot of potency in the sense. So I think she'll be a really great pick in the next coming patch. Probably a permaban, honestly, once people start playing her as AD in mid, though. And then obviously Karma. I think Ezreal Karma is really where she shines the most. So I would probably for the most part, I would have like Ezreal and Ezreal Karma is going to be S. Just like Nami Lucian, I believe is S tier. But outside of that, Karma is still good. She gives you good lane pressure, etc. But a lot of games are going to later stages of the game, and there are characters that just kind of give more. Give more damage, give more shielding, give more healing, etc. So she'll just be hovering in the A tier. But if you can play Ezreal Karma with her, just like Nami Lucian, I put both of these characters in the S tier when they're with their respective partners. But generically, not as big of a fan. So kind of just looking over the A tiers real quick is, as you can see, engagers are still fine. You can still play Leona, Nautilus, Rakan, etc. But I'm not as crazy about them as I am about the enchanters, shielding, healing, etc. Because if you aren't moving around the map a lot or getting a lot of kills or just working with your jungler frequently, then they struggle a little bit to have that oomph to get kills in laning phase especially. And also they do get outscaled a good amount because you're just kind of not tanky on a support budget most of the time. Outside of that, you can kind of see some AP mages that poke. I think they have some decent matchups if you pair them well with things like Jhin. But, you get outscaled pretty hard and you need your laning phase to go well. So these are characters that okay, you can play these AP mages. And I think maybe in the super lower elo, like characters like Brand and Xerath, they can do all right. But if you're not doing a good job consistently hitting skill shots, or if you die to ganks early, or just even lose your flash, these characters can struggle to play aggressively. And so that's why they're not in the S tier either. A lot of people probably ask me things about Maokai. I still think Maokai support is actually pretty decent, just because of the fact that if you're, dragons are still an easy way to lock out games. And playing a character like Maokai, who throws tons of saplings and brushes and just controls that dragon location really, really well, can still do a lot. Plus, he does have great gank setup, and even though I think his laning is on the weaker side of things, I think his out of laning can be really, really potent, especially with the saplings, controlling space, and also his ultimate is a great disengage tool, kind of like Renata ult or, the wave going across the fight. And then outside of that, Zyra kind of pairs well with it too. I think Zyra I've liked sometimes if my laner is really strong. So Jhin is always the one that comes to mind, or maybe the enemy team just picks a weak laner. So maybe like a Vayne or a Kai'Sa, these short range characters that you can bully early. I like those kinds of games, but try to be a little bit conservative when picking characters like Zyra, just because if you don't do super well in the early game, I've had games where I've been 20, 25 minutes in, no Leandry still, and I'm just depressed. And being depressed is not really fun to do in League of Legends. And then as we've kind of covered, these characters, Nami and Karma, both good. They don't super scale or, utilize the mythics nearly as well. So that's why they're kind of in the A tier. Plus, outside of their lane pairing, so like no Nami Lucian or no Karma Ezreal, I feel like they're a bit on the weaker side of things. Not so bad that they're unplayable, but just that if I'm picking my characters especially blind, or if I'm trying to win more consistently, they're not on my list of, hey, I'm going to pick these characters every time, every game. And then after that, we can kind of see under our tier list, the B, mostly characters that kind of just fell on the wayside, Thresh, Rel, Pyke, Bard, Blitzcrank, Amumu, these kinds of characters. Most of these characters just scale poorly, need a really good early game, and if they don't snowball, they're very weak. And I just feel like a lot of games nowadays are going longer, a little bit more throwy, and I think that these characters do poorly in those scenarios. So that's kind of why they're in B tier and below. I still think you can kind of play B tier, but I personally wouldn't recommend it, and anything that's in C or under, I'm not really touching ever in my life. So that pretty much concludes it. Hopefully you find this guide helpful. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment in the section below, and let me know, what characters are you looking forward to playing in 12.12. I'll see you next time. Peace.